The ability to speak might not make you intelligent, but we're going to try to prove otherwise. This is the Clashing Sabres podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon, and right over here, you see my other co-host. He is Chopper on a bad hair day. It's
Davor.
Davor. How we doing, man? Your hair actually looks good today. I'm the one hiding my hair under a hat.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am honestly exhausted. I am worn out and beat down and ready to talk some Star Wars. So this has been what I've been looking forward to all day. So I'm excited to sit down and talk. And of course, for 10 years from Rebels, which is just crazy to think about that it's been 10 years since Rebels has been out. So we were percolating on what we were going to talk about and decided that we were going to talk about some Star Wars Rebels. So we're doing a Rebels draft tonight, a team to infiltrate an Imperial base. So I'm really excited about that. Should be a really, really good time. But in the meantime, while you're listening, go down in the show notes. Make sure you follow us on all of the social media platforms, things of that nature. And start watching our YouTube channel. If you're listening on podcast right now, we are putting this up on YouTube so you can see our beautiful mugs. Because what else do you want to do on a Friday night other than watch us talk about Star Wars? So we're gonna do that. And on that note, let's jump into the conversation. And Davor, I gotta know, man, it's been a minute since we sat down, just you and me. So what have you been Star Warsing lately?
Let's see. What have I been? What's the last Star Wars thing I think it was. Yeah, so I recently finished, not too long ago, finished reading Iron Fist. So one of my resolutions for the year is that I wanted to read the old Legends X-Wing books.
Okay.
And so maybe like a week and a half ago or so, I finished Iron Fist, which is book number 6. Yes. So now I'm in the
Aren't there like 15 of them or something?
yeah, there's
like
10.
That?
So I'm now in the Wraith Squadron part of it. Is the first 4 are all Rogue Squadron, and then I don't, is it 5 onwards? If Drew were here, he would tell me. But at least whatever. Right now, I Iron Fist is the second Wraith book, so that's where I'm at.
I read the first one, and I'll admit I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't hate it, but I'm not a fighter pilot person. It's never been my jam. Alphabet Squadron even took me a while to get on board with. I think that was before you and I were friends, and when we had that conversation about the original Alphabet Squadron book, and that really changed my perspective on that. But I just couldn't commit. I didn't like it enough to commit to 10 other books, or 9 other books, or however many it is. So are you listening to them? That's how you usually do it. So yeah. So that I feel like is a different way to take it in, that I'm just not as good at consuming audiobooks as I am just reading. But it is with things like that, with the sound effects and everything, it's a different kind of way of consuming that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm the sort of person, I think, like, we may have had this conversation on the show, which is that with Alphabet Squadron, the first time I read it, or at least the first 2, I read them like as books and kind of had a hard time, just because like it's easy with the Starfighter books, like you just kind of get lost in the battles in particular.
Yeah.
And you're reading, and it's like 3 pages, and you're like, "What just?" I absorbed none of what I just read. Like I had that experience with the first 2 Alphabet books. Like when they would get into the dogfights, I'd be like, I don't remember anything of what just happened. And then when I finally got around to Victory's Price, I did that on audiobook and had a much better time with it. And then last year, actually, I revisited the first 2 on audiobook and had a better experience with them. So yeah, it's definitely helpful. I'm generally an audiobook person, both for like convenience, because you can, I can do it when I'm like on the commute and like doing chores and things like that. And I think, at least for me, I think I retain better on listen than I do on reading it. But then
I'm
they're
the
also
complete opposite.
yeah, and there's also like certain kinds of stories, especially like those more action ones, where it is kind of nice to be able to hear it. Rather than like, because sometimes, or at least with me, like sometimes you get that bit of like eyes glazing over the page situation.
Well, here's something I don't think we've talked about, because Lindsay and I have discussed this a little bit on Don't Burn the Sacred Text, but
Mhm.
one of my problems with the audio dramas is that they don't differentiate the voices well enough. Like there's like a lot of characters that end up sounding the same. Do you have that same experience in the audiobook, since it's the same person? Because I'm thinking like I listen to audiobooks as I'm like going to sleep or stuff like that, right? And
Yeah.
so I think of Mark Thompson as Han Solo, and some of those iconic ones that are
Yeah.
very distinct, but I don't know.
Um, not really. I think one of the things, like, differentiating between, like, the audio drama, so, like, your Tempest, Breaker, Runner, Battle of Jeddah, those, versus, like, the audio books that they do that are, like, written books that then get made, is that, like, in the case of the audio books, like, you have the dialogue broken up by narration, essentially.
Yeah.
So, like, you have, in between, let's say, Mark Thompson doing the different character voices, like, you have him talking about, like, oh, so and so is doing this, and so then there's a little bit of, like, you get a little bit of the action what they're doing, and then you get into some dialogue, and you're, oh, okay, like, it's these two characters are doing this thing because the story is telling you, versus, like, with the audio drama, it's literally all just dialogue,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's all just characters talking. There's no break in between the dialogue where they're telling you he leapt off that building and, like, whatever, or, like, he turned to her and said, like, all of that is kind of implied via what the characters are saying,
Yeah.
versus you have that kind of third person element of, like, the omniscient narrator talking in between the characters. So I think that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And like the dialogue becomes a little more natural when you break it up with that narration in between.
Yeah.
Just because like this is a bad example, but like in an audio drama you have to be like, "Oh my goodness, look on your left, there's this," like
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
out
yeah,
from
yeah.
behind, kind of thing. And that you don't have to do the characters talking in a way that, to convey that or whatever. Have you ever listened to the original trilogy audio dramas?
I have not, no.
Oh, they're really good. I'll have to see if I still have them and send them to you. They're a lot of fun. There's like extra scenes cut in and stuff like that. Like you get in A New Hope, you get the scene of Luke selling the speeder, which always
Oh,
like stood out
okay.
to me, and Obi-Wan kind of bargaining with the shop owner.
Oh, that's
In
cool.
Empire, you actually get like Han talking to Luke as they spend the night with the Tauntaun.
Oh,
There's a
man.
whole scene there. Those are worth the time, especially being an audio person like you are. I
Mhm.
think that you would definitely enjoy those quite a bit. Uh, and it's cool because at least Mark Hamill does Luke through. I think he does A New Hope and Empire, and then didn't do Return of the Jedi, because Return of the Jedi came out like a few years after the movie. It was kind of late
Oh, okay.
coming out, so those are a lot of fun to do. Um, I wonder too, now that we're like out of the High Republic and there's not like a particular publishing initiative, if we're gonna
Mhm.
get more audio dramas, other than like these little short story ones they're doing for like Audible and stuff.
Yeah.
Like personally, I think I'd be okay if they stopped doing it. Where do you stand on the audio dramas? 'Cause I feel like they've kind of, I mean, you set the bar really high with Dooku Jedi Lost, and then I don't feel like they
Mhm.
ever reached it again.
Yeah, yeah, you're right that they did start off really strong with that one, and, I mean, really, since High Republic started, it has pretty much just been in High Republic, because the only
Yeah,
other 2 have been Dooku Jedi Lost, and then there was the, Doctor Aphra one.
which is just
Uh
a retelling of the comic
Yeah,
books.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know, I think I'm kind of indifferent to the audio dramas in the
Yeah.
sense of, like, I've, for the most part, kind of enjoyed the ones that we've gotten, but I don't know that they're necessarily, like, my preferred mode of storytelling. So I'm sort of
Yeah.
just take it or leave it with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of like, I liked Jeddah. I did not like Breaker or Runner very
Mm.
much. Those were Honestly, it's like the sounds that they have around it were
Yeah.
really grating. That was the biggest problem for me. Whereas like Dooku Jedi Lost, it is very dialogue heavy
Yeah.
until you get to the end and stuff starts breaking apart and stuff like that. So maybe they'll release a Star Wars Rebels audio drama. That'd be
That'd be
cool.
cool. Yeah, that would.
Get all the voice actors back together.
Oh yeah.
Do something like that. Well, speaking of the High Republic, I'm still working my way through Crystal Crown.
Okay.
Which again, it's got to stick the landing. I don't know where I'm at with this book, which is making it
Okay.
really hard to like. I don't dislike it, but I don't like it either.
Okay.
Which is hard because like I was kind of like torn on this book because it's acolyte content, right?
Yeah.
Which I like aside from like what they did to Vernestra Rowe, and I think like the story that they told was bad and stuff like that. I did not find any of the characters likable in that show. I've gone off on that before. I'm not going to go off on that again. So it made it hard to want to invest in Yord and Jecki for this book. And I was like, okay, but it's Tessa Groton writing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So like, it's going to be fine. And the problem is right now it's just fine. And it's really hard. It's like when Claudia Gray puts out just like a what's a really good book for other people, but it's just an average book for Claudia Gray. It's kind of like, oh, this didn't change my life like Master and Apprentice did. And it's like, that's so unfair to set up a book to do that, right?
Yeah.
But it's so natural for us to like set this standard. And Tessa just has set a standard that's so insanely high because she has no misses.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, maybe is because everybody's going to miss. Like, it's just that's the nature of the beast, right? Like, we're not talking down to anybody. I'm wondering if this is the miss, you know? So we will see. Again, like I am genuinely kind of indifferent on it right now. It feels very Star Wars plays the Hunger Games.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, which I'm not upset with. It just what made the Hunger Games really effective was the stakes that it set up.
Yeah.
And so minor spoiler, but basically, you know, Hunger Games, there's like, you know, these events that they have or whatever. This is based around like events that they have that used to be survival games, kind of like the Hunger Games, but they've taken all of the you could possibly die parts out of it. And so it's a very like we're honoring our culture kind of event, but there is no death as the stakes, right? Which is kind of you've brought this up quite a bit of that being used too much.
Yeah.
But I think they took that away and it was smart, but then I don't know that they replaced it with anything else.
I see.
As stakes. So we'll see. You know, I'm on the last event and I still have like 100 pages left. So there's still a significant amount of time that it has to cover, and so we'll see how it turns out. But hopefully this isn't Tessa Groton's final book. That's the only
I hope
thing.
not.
I really want her to get some more, and I just keep looking over at the what's the not Tales of the Empire, the History of the Empire one.
It's Chris Kempshaw's book.
Yes,
Rise and Fall.
Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. Thank you. That one is sitting on my bookshelf to read next, and I just keep looking at it like I just got to power through this so that I can, because I got like 3 books since I bought that one, and like I've got to read the new books to cover them for the show.
Yeah.
So like I think I got it, and then Wayseeker came, and then Sanctuary came, and then Crystal Crown came. So it's actually been 3 books that I've had to get through before I get to that. So we'll see. In the meantime, we've got some Star Wars to talk about here, and we're gonna go ahead and transition into that and get into our Star Wars Rebels draft. So for those of you who haven't done this before, we pick 5 people for each team. The goal is to infiltrate an Imperial base. That's kind of the parameters. That, and we said that you're not allowed to pick more than 2 people from the Ghost crew. So, which I thought was going to be hard, and then I started thinking about everybody who shows up in Star Wars Rebels, and I was
There's
like,
a
oh, I
lot of
got
people
this.
show. There's a lot of like one episoder people who show up.
But I was like, that counts. They are in
Mhm.
Rebels, so that counts. So,
I've got one on my crew that is going to be on that technicality. So they're in one episode. They're a Rebels character.
There you go. So I enjoyed putting together my list of possibilities for this one. So I'm excited to do it. But since we're on video, instead of like just me being nice to you and letting you go first and stealing characters that I want, or me being selfish and taking the characters that I want first, let's rock, paper, scissors it. All right.
Okay, let's do
So we're gonna
this.
get rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Make sure everybody can see.
All right, yeah.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Shoot.
You went late. You went late, sir.
You're frozen on me, so.
All right. Let's do it again.
I think there was a very poorly inconvenient camera delay. Yeah.
All right, ready?
Okay, let's try again.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah, you went the same. I was trying to hope you weren't. All right, Davor, you get to go first.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, you sort of set out the parameters, and that was basically what guided me. It's like we have the premise of you're trying to infiltrate an Imperial base, and so literally my one and only parameter was which characters do I think have traits, knowledge, abilities that I think would be useful in this.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all I asked myself when I was picking my team. So I'm going to start with my first pick. Because we only get 2 Ghost Crew people, I'm going to try to get my Ghost Crew folks early because there's only 6 of them. 6 of them, yes.
Yeah.
I guess technically 7, but I don't think I was going to draft Jason Syndulla.
Hey, you don't know. You don't know what my plan is.
Yeah. So I'm going to do one of my Ghost Crew first, and that's, of course, going to be old Sabine Wren. I got to have her on my team. I think she brings a couple of advantages. One is, ex-Imperial. She was a cadet, so like that, a little bit of that knowledge could come in handy in terms of getting into a base, right? She may know things. And then also, she's at least among the Ghost Crew, she's the resident, explosives expert. Like if you got to, create a distraction, quick getaway, anything like that. We want to, after we leave the base, we want to leave it smoldering in ruins. She's the girl to do it for you. So I'm going to go with her.
I will say I have a bunch of notes of like which characters and skills they have and stuff like that. And I also have a perfect draft list if I just get everybody that I want. Sabine is not on my perfect draft list.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. So I do think she's definitely like an alternate. That I think I picked some other people who had other skills that I wanted that also Sabine has.
Yeah.
But if you're going with first round draft pick, I think Sabine is a smart pick because of the things you mentioned. And she's also infiltrated plenty of bases before. We saw her get in and out before in terrible situations in Star Wars Rebels. So good pick.
And if you take later iteration of her, she has a jetpack. That's handy too.
She has a jetpack. She has a dark saber.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very good pick. All right. All right. Well, in shocking news, drum roll, please.
I wouldn't even think about taking who you're gonna say right now.
First round pick, and actually, I did pause at this because I was like, do I want to do it just because, or is there actual reasoning?
Yeah.
And so I decided that my first draft pick had to be centered around leadership. Who's going to be the head of my team and who's going to be running the operation? And there was another character I considered first, actually, when I was thinking kind of like you of I've got to take my Ghost Crew first. And then I realized, well, this actually covers 2 things that I wanted out of a couple of those characters. And of course, that is Lady Ahsoka Tano. Gotta take Ahsoka first. There's just, like, besides my bias, there's so much that she brings to the table. the Force abilities, her leadership history, her battle history, her history with, being able to infiltrate places incognito and get in and out quietly, or be able to get out when things fall apart, training with Anakin Skywalker. It's pretty much like make the plan goes off the rails, forget the plan kind of thing,
Yeah.
and so she knows how to handle a situation like that where everything's going wrong, and I think that's going to be really beneficial to the team. And then where she's at in Rebels, she has spent the better part of her life in leadership roles, with various teams. She worked with clones, she worked with various Jedi, she worked with the Lerman, she worked with everybody kind of thing. And so whoever else I end up drafting, I think she's going to be able to find and pull the best out of them, put them in positions to be successful. And to me, that's what a great leader does, is puts your people in positions that they can be successful. And so besides her being the best Star Wars character to ever exist and my personal favorite, I do think she's genuinely the best leader for this team, and that's what I was pulling in my number one spot.
All right, good. I knew I was going to keep that lane completely clear. Like, I'm not even going to, because Brandon's going to put her on the list.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hold off before saying anything else in case in case you decide to draft my number two pick. But in the most unshocking thing to happen on a podcast ever, I took Ahsoka. So go ahead with your number two pick.
All right, my number two is going to be my second Ghost Crew pick, just to get those out of the way, and then we can move on to all the other people who are in Rebels, and that's Ezra Bridger.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm taking him for a couple reasons. One is a reason that you just talked about in the context of Ahsoka. Having a Force wielder on your infiltration team, I think, will never hurt. I think it's good to have him there for that reason. He's good at breaking into places. We're constantly seeing him crawling through ducts, all throughout Rebels. So that's a good asset to have. And then also, if you think about, I mean, you sort of hinted at this a little bit in terms of the structure of, how you made your list. Like, you're also thinking about not just the individual assets that a certain person is bringing to the table, but you're also thinking about you're putting together a team. So then you're thinking about like compatibility and working together and all that. You got my first pick with Sabine, like Sabine, Ezra, right? They form a very strong bond over the show, and even a little bit that we've seen them together in season 1 of Ahsoka. It's like they work really well together. So yeah, there's also that compatibility factor there between the two of them.
I think that's a good pick. I was thinking about it, and there was a version that I was considering of just all Force users, because really, there's enough. There are enough in Rebels that you could draft, and Ezra, of course, being one of them. And I think like kind of his skills having to survive on the streets for so long kind of gave him a leg up in being able to adapt as things go along, right?
Yeah.
And I think about the Luminar and Dooley episode of Rebels where they infiltrate that base.
Yeah.
When I was considering the Ghost Crew members, like that was kind of the one I went to, because it's one of the ones where you have all of them involved. And I was like, wow, Ezra's not really a good fit. He's kind of a mess there. And then I was just thinking about it, and I was like, oh, no, he actually did spend like weeks infiltrating a base just a little bit later on in the show, when he meets Zaire Leone and stuff. Like we join in a little bit after he's been there for a while, but Kanan is stressing out because he's been there so long. And so that, implies he can get along with anything. So good pick, solid pick. I thank you for not taking my first Ghost Crew member, because to me, you can't have enough solid leadership, especially if those leaders work well together. And so, if all else goes wrong, you need to know who your number two in command is. And so I'm going with ace pilot Harrison Dula. I think you've got to have a pilot. That's a requirement. You know, you got to be able to get in and get out. You have to have a pilot that can think on her feet. Hera has shown that could be an asset on the ground or piloting. Hera is obviously able to do that. And then just the leadership aspect of it, again, I think is really important. And Hera, where Ahsoka does a good job of taking the people that she's given and bringing them together, Hera does a good job of bringing them from the outside together. So also, if we're thinking about recruiting people too, right? Like, how are we getting this team together? I think Hera is an asset there. But going back to that episode I was talking about, you know, she realizes the creatures are, you know, taking a mating signal off of the ghost, and that's what gets her to utilize them to help with the escape, right?
Yeah.
Just out of the blue stuff that like most people would be frustrated with. Hera is calm under pressure in that kind of situation, and so I think that works really well to my advantage, to have, you know, Ahsoka and Hera working in tandem. And we've seen them work in tandem before, you know,
Mhm.
and they obviously were able to continue doing that. And even in Ahsoka season 1, they haven't worked together in what we can presume is years, and it just instantly, you know, it's right there. It picks back up. And I think that's a sign of a good team. So I definitely wanted to try to get those two mixed in together.
That's a good pick. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Hera. And yeah, like her, like you've got a really strong like dual monarchy here at the top of your infiltration
Yeah.
team with Ahsoka and Hera. Like you really got the brains here for this operation.
Again, a little bit of everything. Like, I
Mhm.
think your picks are solid, but I'm pretty happy with having these two as the heads. You know, it would be really easy for, you know, characters like this to have egos or whatever, and I considered that neither Ahsoka nor Hera really has an ego about what they do, and they're
Yeah.
not enamored with success. Like, they've been there before, they've done it before, and so they feel comfortable with that, which makes me feel like they're going to be a good team together.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right, who you got? You got Sabine, you got Ezra. Who are you taking number 3?
All right, so now I'm on the non-ghost crew portion of my list here. So for number 3, all right, number 3. Now I gotta start bringing in my brains of the operation here, right? Like, who am I going to be looking on to sort of lead and have the big picture, much like you did with Ahsoka and Hera? And so for my number 3 pick, I'm going with Kalani. So Kalani
Okay.
is the super tactical droid who is originally from the Onderon arc in Clone Wars, and then returns in one episode. That's how I got him in one episode. He is in.
It counts.
Yep, he is in the season 3 episode, The Last Battle. So that's the episode where Kanan, Ezra, and Rex go to Agamar to get supplies from an old separatist ship, and then they find that Kalani and a bunch of battle droids are still active and acting like the Clone Wars are still going on, and then he basically puts them through like a battle simulation thing to try to end the war for victory for the separatists. And so, yeah, I went with him just because I thought, you know, I mean, for a lot of the reasons that come up in that episode, right? He's a super tactical droid, which means he's very intelligent, well versed in tactics and strategy, and particularly in his case, the thing, you know, something that Rex brings up in that episode, right? Like, he's had a lot of time on that planet to kind of study things, you know, what works, what doesn't, all of that. And so, yeah, if I'm thinking about who's a character, you know, that I want on my team, who's going to be able to like do the big picture and kind of point where everybody needs to go and what they need to do, what's the best way in, best way out, all of that. I think he is. I mean, I think there's a lot that fit the bill in Rebels, but I think he's definitely among those. So I'm putting him on my roster.
That's a really good pick. He didn't even cross my mind. Yeah, it's very Davor. Like, of
Yes,
course,
I have to have a droid.
Yeah, have to have a droid, and of course you're gonna pull like the smartest droid in Star Wars kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That fits perfectly. And And then the nice thing too is like we've seen tactical droids can last if their head gets decapitated. So he can survive quite a bit,
Yes.
and still transmit data and everything like that. So a literal supercomputer at your fingertips. So all right, so you got Sabine and Ezra obviously going into the base. Do you have Kalani going into the base, or is Kalani hanging back and kind of guiding from? I'm assuming you're going to have some kind of ship that you
Yeah.
draft.
I
So
think I'm probably imagining him as he's sort of behind the front lines.
yeah,
So he's
I think that
guiding
makes sense.
everybody. He's in touch, but yeah, he's not like out there trying to sneak in or wield a blaster. I think he would have a hard time probably doing that. I think he would stand out.
Yeah, quite a bit.
So yeah, I think he's leading from behind.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna pick a droid, but I'm gonna pick a droid later on. So
Okay.
my third pick is somebody who Kalani wouldn't like very much. But I had to. We're talking Rebels, right? We're talking Dave Filoni. You got to have Mandalorians on the list.
Mm.
You already took Sabine, so that eliminates that. So I'm going with old Bo-Katan as my number 3 pick. Yeah. I again, the leadership aspect comes into it quite a bit. But I also think Bo-Katan does a good job of being able to realize when she needs to lead and when she needs to follow. I think that's a really important skill, especially when you have such dynamic women as Ahsoka and Hera there. Like, I think Sabine would be okay saying, like, I'm cool with not being in charge here, and I'm going to use my skills, which she's got great skills. She's got all the tactical skills that you could want to be able to go along with the mission. Obviously, having some Beskar there always helpful.
Yep.
We've seen her infiltrate bases before. And then I also, again, was thinking about the teamwork aspect of it, right? Because if the team is falling apart, they're not communicating well, like it's not going to work. And you've had Sabine work with Ahsoka, you've had Sabine work with Hera. And so I think the 3 of them together would work really, really well. And that is kind of the most important factor that I considered is like, how are these people going to work together? And so bringing Bo-Katan in as my Mandalorian, I think just made sense. Especially if she has the dark saber. She does get handed it in Rebels, so depending on what time this takes place in. But even without that, I think she's one of the most effective fighters we've seen in Star Wars. And also cool montage scene of them walking down the hallway. Like, just imagine, like, remember when in the episode of The Mandalorian where she her and I can't remember the other 2 characters' names. The one's played by Sasha Banks, the wrestler, or Mercedes, whatever she is now. But they're walking down the hallway on the ship.
Yeah.
Just imagine that, but it's Ahsoka and Hera and Sabine or Bo-Katan. Like, holy crap, that would be wild.
That would be a very intimidating sight.
I would get that tattooed on my back. Like, it would just be an entire back piece. So yeah, going with Bo-Katan there as the number 3 pick. I definitely wouldn't have picked her any higher than this. Like, I don't see her as the leader of the team. Because I do think she has some fatal flaws in terms of getting down on herself and not necessarily believing in her own leadership abilities. But I thought a lot of season 7 of the Clone Wars and how she seeks out Ahsoka. Like, she knows her boundaries. She knows when she's not able to do something, and she goes and seeks help. And I think that helps quite a bit. So that's my number 3. So we both got a Mandalorian. We both have a Force user. You have a droid. I do not yet, but who you got as your number 4?
All right. So my number 4 pick is going to be Alexander Callis. Did I ruin your perfect list?
You did ruin my perfect list. I thought I was going to get it.
Yes, because I talked about Kalani, and obviously there's the high intelligence and the analysis and the strategy, but like it'd be good to pair that with somebody who's got that insider information, and like Callis is going to have that. Like, he's going to know how these bases are laid out. What's the protocol? What's the procedure? Like how to get in and out, where the most security is going to be, all of that. He's going to have all that insider Imperial information. And so he's going to be able to, I mean, he could be in either position, going back to what you were talking about, the Kalani pick. Like, he could be hanging back and just sort of giving guidance on that. But you could also imagine him like in the base,
Yeah.
Potentially play acting still as a loyal Imperial and kind of helping your Sabine as well as everybody else kind of make their way through. But yeah, I just thought about, like, I think it'd be really helpful to have that inside information, and so I went Callus. Sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You're very selfish because you already had Sabine for that same reason. And then you're like, but I'm also going to take Callus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty messed up. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty inconsiderate of you. Man, that's a good pull. And we've seen him, do the insider thing before. Of course, he was Fulcrum, or a Fulcrum agent in Rebels. I think I didn't expect you to value the inside Imperial information as much as you did, because now you've taken both of the ones that I was planning on taking in that regard. So that's a lot of fun. Thanks for that, Davor. But I do think it's a great pick. Like, he can play whatever character he needs to play. Like, that's part of his skill, because it was kind of a survival mechanism for him after what happened with the Lasat, right? Like, I think he spent a lot of time playing the role of the Imperial and not being really authentic to himself until he was confronted with Zeb in what's the episode title that I'm blanking on right now?
Oh, God, when they're on the ice moon.
When they're on the ice planet.
It's gonna bother me.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Drop it in the comments, people. Drop it in the
Yes.
comments on YouTube, or if you're seeing this on an Instagram clip or whatever it is, drop it in the comments. But yeah, that episode, I think, is what kind of shakes his reality to realize he hasn't been living authentically to himself, right? But there's something about that, is that, like, having, I guess, prior identities, you can always kind of go back to that and put yourself in those shoes again. And I think if that became necessary, he could absolutely do that. And I'm just thinking now I'm thinking of Callus and Kalani, like in a Cassian K2 situation where Kalani just, like, he's like, I'm just taking him, and slaps him, right?
Yes.
And slaps. I'm taking him to the brig. Oh man. All right, so then that kind of changes up my draft board. So I am going to go with as close as I can get to what you were trying to do there with Callus, or which I think you did quite effectively, and that's getting somebody who kind of helped make the Empire what it is, in Captain Rex.
Ooh.
Because I think with Rex, we see him in Rebels, knowing, like, the codes and stuff that the Imperials are using, because him and Cody kind of invented them. And so that, I think, is a really good skill to be able to have, is him being able to kind of help us silently break into the facility there. We've seen him infiltrate a lot of stuff before. Obviously there are some downsides. He has aged quite a bit from when we saw him in his prime in the Clone Wars, right? He's not as young and spry as he used to be, but with that, age comes wisdom. And so I think also there's the shorthand that him and Ahsoka would have together. That's really effective. And then, him and Bo worked together in Siege of Mandalore. So I think that that's really effective. So, it's not going to be as perfect as yours as far as Imperial information, but I was kind of between, my backups were Rex or Wedge. And I just think Rex brings a little more knowledge to the structural integrity with the Empire is a weird thing to say, but the structure of the Empire, because he kind of was the foundation upon which it was built throughout the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. I think, Rex is good for a couple reasons. Like, you talked about the sort of synergy with the other folks on your team, and then like what knowledge he brings. I'm still really curious about the stuff that they imply about Rex, when he gets reintroduced, because there's definitely some like in those early episodes when he's first brought back in, there's some implication there that like he worked for the Empire for a minute, or at least that's how they
Yeah.
kind of make it seem. And no subsequent media has really done anything with that. So I'm like, what was Dave like going for there? Is there an untold story? I'm really interested about like what was going on there.
Yeah, and I have to go back and watch, but I almost wonder if the language kind of says it like the clones worked for the Empire, right? Like, did they keep it vague
Yeah.
enough to where we assumed that it was talking about Rex, but it can in retroactively be looked at to be talking about just the clones in general? Because I mean, of course, we know the clones did that, and we know Rex didn't.
Yeah.
Or at least we assume that he didn't based on the events of season 7. I guess if we were going to see that, the best place would have been the Bad Batch,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. And I find it hard to believe that like if Rex was a part of the Empire, that he wouldn't have been a central character in that interaction, with Crosshair or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, he pops up briefly in Bad Batch, but like not as a part of the Empire. Like he's his own
that's
kind
right.
of.
He does.
Yeah, he's there just
He's
sort of like
fighting
as
the
a.
Empire.
Yeah, he's kind of just like his own like one person operation. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
good point.
know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Dang
I
it,
don't know
I'm
if
gonna
that's
have to
just
go back and watch Star Wars Rebels again.
yeah, I don't know if that's just an untold story or if that's something that got put in there with the thought of doing something and then Bad Batch, etc. They went in a different direction. It's interesting.
That's our next audio drama, is Rex as a part of the Empire, and just in meetings, like, yeah, you can use this code. We already did that. Like, we got it
Yeah.
unlocked. It's just in meetings, Imperial meetings after Imperial meetings. All right. So we're down to our final picks, and that leads to you, sir.
All right, my final pick. Oh, I thought I knew who I was going to go with, and now I'm second guessing. Oh, I think I'm going to stick with my OG. Yes, I'm going to do that. I think there's a couple. Yeah, I'm going to do that one. All right. So my fifth and final pick is going to be AP5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
AP5.
Nice.
A little bit for the Callus and even the Sabine reasons. Like he is an ex-Imperial droid. So he can, again, he has some of that. He's going to have some of that inside knowledge, that ability, and also I think in particular for him, really the ability to move through the base and through the space. Because one big advantage, I mean, we see this in Star Wars media a couple times, of droids is they tend to be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like the humans, particularly if you are in an Imperial situation, they'll just kind of walk right by. You get a little bit of that with like 3PO and R2, like on the Death Star. They're kind of just there, and people let them pass, and nobody's really like second guessing, like who are these guys? Like what are they doing? Like where'd they come from? They're just like yeah, move along, like whatever. And so I think that's really useful because they can almost be like a sort of like they're almost like a sort of secret fifth column, like in your infiltration. Like they can be doing stuff and moving around, and nobody's like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing? They're just kind of, they're almost just like in the background. No one's really paying attention. So I think I think a person kind of blend in that way, I think is good to have. And then, of course, with him being ex-Imperial, he's going to be able to, again, know where to go, what to do, what the protocols are, all that sort of stuff that I think is also going to be handy.
You got a lot of ex-Imperials on there. You
Yeah.
got a lot of faith in these people and their redemption, man.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so yours is Ezra, Sabine, Callus, Kalani, and AP5.
Yes.
Okay. I will say, I feel like yours is going to be much better at the beginning, the planning of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is going to end being a little bit better at the execution of the mission.
Yeah, you do have the firepower. I will give you that.
Yeah. So, but I do need a droid. You have to have a droid for stuff like this.
Yeah.
And this was a game time decision. I'm deciding in the moment right now based on who I was able to get, and it was between. I'll just tell you guys. You deserve to know. It was between R2 and Chopper.
Mm.
And I'm going Chopper. I'm going with Chopper. I mean, one, ride or die for Hera.
Yeah.
I think R2 for Ahsoka would behave the same way, but really, like, Chopper and Hera is a different level connection. And I also think, like, Chopper has a mind of his own, and we do see him, like, go off and do his own thing sometimes. But I think he recognizes when the stakes are high, and he acts like he plays to the level of his competition, right? Like, so when he goes off to steal the leg when they're like getting fuel or whatever,
Yeah.
like that's just another fuel run to him, right? So he
Mhm.
doesn't really, he feels like he can focus on other things. Like everybody else knows what to do. Whereas you think about like some of the higher stakes situations, and you don't see Chopper playing around. Like Chopper is locked in. He is ready to go. We also have, the fact that you can paint Chopper. We've
Yes.
seen that, to fit into different things. He's infiltrated bases before. And I do think that even older models get even more ignored in
Mhm.
Star Wars than the newer ones, right? And so we have that advantage with Chopper being a Clone Wars relic. Of course, R2 was too, but the astromechs of R2's style, the R2 droids, don't really change much, whereas like Chop was altered and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of advantages. And sometimes you just need a stone cold bastard on there to just,
Yes.
like you just do. And if somebody has to do some dirty work, like Ahsoka, Hera, they're not doing the dirty work. Like they
You're
have
about
moral
to put
compasses.
Bo in there that you were like, well, hold on.
I was, and then I was like, depends on the situation. Something like Bo's line is a little bit grayer than Ahsoka and Hera's. Chopper has
She was
lost the
gonna
line.
kill some kids in season 5, whatever that was, of Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's a little shady. The line is way back there for Chopper. Like the line is a dot. The line is a dot for Chopper, and so I think you got to have that. And I think he, as far as what we would need for an Imperial infiltration, he brings everything R2 does to the table with that added element of the stone cold element that he has about him. Now, there is the disadvantage that he's a lot louder than R2, like he likes to run his mouth. So there is the chance that he, kind of ruins the whole mission. But then I've got the firepower around him to really, lock in and help them survive. So that's why I'm saying I think your team is going to be really effective in the planning. And if we can bind our two teams together and we had your team stay back, and like run and coordinate everything, they're the coaches and my team is the one running the plays. Like,
yeah,
we're making money, man.
Yeah.
That's a good episode of Star Wars Rebels right there.
Absolutely.
So to recap mine, I've got Ahsoka, I've got Hera, Bo, I've got Captain Rex, and then I have Chopper. And then Davor had Ezra, Sabine, Kalani, Agent Callus, and AP5 as his team. So, what do you think? In your opinion, who won?
Oh, it's hard to say. Because each of us is each of our teams is almost like built for different aspects of the infiltration.
Right?
Yeah. Hard to say. Maybe a little bit to you. At least like your team particularly. Like if things got hot.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Like I would lean on yours. Like mine could do like a really good like surgical operation, like in out, like, quick and clean sort of things like that. Like I'm well built for. If the alarm gets tripped, and base is on high alert and stuff, like you've got the team that will just blast and cut and blow their way through.
And I was kind of banking on the fact that that's probably going to happen. If I'm being honest, in picking my team. Yeah, no, like I do think it depends on the type of mission quite a bit. Did you have anybody either like that I stole from you, or B, that you were like, I really want to find a place for them on this list, but I just can't?
Oh, that's a good question. No, there's no one you stole. I did think about, like, Chopper was probably on the bubble. Like
Yeah.
he might have ended up, if you had taken one or two of mine. I might have put Chopper on, because I did think about him for, like, yeah, just like the chaos gremlin of it all. I think another person that I was thinking about putting on the team, again, was sort of on the bubble if one of these had been taken or whatnot. I did think about Leia.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, because I
good.
thought, like, Imperial senator, like, she can literally just walk through the front door, you know, and, like, she can get in, and people aren't going to necessarily be second guessing or anything like that. So I did think about Leia.
Okay. For me, it was a lot around the Force users.
Mm,
Uh, which, like, I picked Ahsoka, which should feel like the obvious one, but I was really trying to be as unbiased as possible in this and picking the best team. And so Kanan and Ezra were bubbles for me. My original idea was to do what you did and get the 2 Ghost Crew members first, and it was
yeah.
going to be Hera and Kanan, and then if you took either one of those, I was going to take Ezra. So that
Mm,
was kind of the game plan there. But I'm glad that of all the people, like, Callus was going to be my number 5 pick. So,
mm,
I kind of had to adjust on the fly once you took Callus to make sure that I had somebody who could get me into the base. And so that kind of altered as I went along. But I think you did a great job of explaining why Callus is important, and so I appreciate that, because, like, speaking of characters who you know don't get enough recognition for what they do, like, we had Hot
yeah,
Callus era, and then, like, people don't talk about him anymore. Bring
I
him back,
know.
man. Bring him back.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys let us know in the comments whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or even seeing this on Instagram, TikTok, or wherever. Leave a comment. Let us know who you think won this particular draft battle. Let us know who you would have picked. Like, who would have you taken off of our list? Who would have been on your list? Heck, go over to our Facebook group and just put your list up. Like, who are your 5 that you're picking on your perfect draft team? Like, that's what we want to see going on. Like, let's just have a whole bunch of people put their draft teams on there, and we can have conversations about it, and even bring it up on future episodes to talk about how we think they would have fared compared to our teams, because that's what really makes Star Wars fun, is just this sitting down and having conversations about wild, wacky things. Zach and I got into some really heavy stuff on the last Sith talk about, like, is Lucasfilm in trouble and stuff like that. And we do that here. But sometimes we just like to play games and have fun,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like, to me, this is, you used to, play with your Star Wars toys and make up stories and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
This is what that is for me.
Yes.
Like, this is just playing Star Wars in a different sense, because people do look at you funny when you are walking down the street just swinging a plastic lightsaber around. I don't know that from experience, but I'm just going to assume that people do. So Davor, appreciate you being on the episode, and not stealing all of my draft picks. If people want to stay in touch with you, if they want to see more of what you've got going on, whether it be Star Wars or otherwise, where can they do?
All right. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm over on Blue Sky at Demondum. You can also listen to me as a co-host over on Space Swifties, a Star Wars and Taylor Swift podcast that I host with my wife, the one and only Meg Dow.
And if you're a Star Wars and a Taylor Swift fan, one, get your TikTok algorithm right, because there's some content.
There's
There's
some
some
good stuff.
content.
There's good stuff right
Um,
now.
Yeah, and especially, like, Taylor Swift bringing up, like, Luke and Darth Vader has just like
Mm.
taken over my feed. That's been great. But make sure you're listening to Space Swifties, because it's a lot of fun. And it was funny. I just listened to the last episode, and you guys got like 20-30 minutes in, and I was like, I think they forgot that they were doing a cold open, and they're just going to continue talking, and it's not going to have it. And then Meg brings in the cold open. It was great. So it's just fun, crazy stuff like that, where like you think the show's going to go one way and it goes completely in the opposite direction. That makes Space Swifties a lot of fun. So excited to see what you guys have going on over there. And if you want to stay in touch with us, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening right now. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We have a Blue Sky that I forget to post to all the time. It's also Clashing Sabers. All of that stuff is linked in the show notes, as well as our nonprofit, which puts Star Wars books into classrooms across the country. So as you guys know, there are a lot of book bans and things going on right now, especially in red states, and people are struggling to be able to afford to put together a library of books that kids want to read. And so our little rebellion is, they're going to take away books, we're going to give them away for free. And we do that through you guys donating on Patreon, supporting our fundraisers, and most importantly, nominating teachers. Like, it takes, I was going to say 2 minutes, and that even seems exaggerated. It takes 30 seconds to go over to our website, ClashingSabres.net, click on the menu, nominate a teacher. I take care of everything else from there. Like, you don't have to do anything else. You just, and the nomination can be a sentence, you don't have to do a lot. And we send them books, not because they earned something or anything like that, just because the kids deserve books. Like, they don't have to win a prize. The kids just deserve books, and we're going to send them to them. So ClashingSabres.net/nominated teacher for that, and links in the show notes. We forgot one thing. We were putting together this crew, and we completely, like, I know Star Wars Rebels characters, blah, 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 but like this, we break rules here. That's what we do. So scrap my team. Okay. I'm taking Batch 8.
Hi ho.